And now, from the team of Rogers and Clark, Rogers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to sing a few songs tonight from the Simon and Garfunkel songbook. Hey, I'm glad you like them too. So you just call out your favorite Simon and Garfunkel songs and...
Destination.
That's Amore.
Yellow Rose of Texas.
Memory.
YMCA. That's right, you're the man.
Well, thank you very much. Now see if you remember this one. When you're weary,
As time goes by.
feeling small,
What about that
when tears are in your eyes, I'll dry them all.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore. Bells will ring, ting-a-ling-a-ling, ting-a-ling-a-ring, and you'll sing Vita Bella, Vita Bella.
Strangers in the night, exchanging glances, wondering in the night, what were the chances we'd be sharing love before the night was through?
Good evening, one and all. It's time for the movie show, and boy, I'm not going to tell you yet what clip that movie was from because we'll get into it soon enough. But no soundtrack album came from that album. We'll get into that in a little bit. But welcome. You're listening to Public Radio, KCBX. It's time for Take Two, the movie program. And across the aisle from me, the film aficionado that you always want to trust when she tells you a movie is bad. It's Catherine McDonald.
And across the aisle from me, it's the czar of cinema on the Central... Good cinema. The czar of good cinema on the Central Coast, Jim Dee.
Great to see you, Catherine.
Good to see you, Jim. It's been a while. I'm glad to be back here.
Oh, great to have you here. And boy, we're going to have some fun tonight. And I think our listeners are going to have fun tonight.
You're going to have to laugh, otherwise it's going to be too painful. We have to laugh heartily.
We're going to be going between laughing and pain, I think tonight. So. But before we tell you about the movie that opened up tonight's program, we have a few important announcements for listeners of Take Two. First of all, on this coming Saturday, March the 12th, the French film The Chorus, recently nominated for an Academy Award, will be screened at 1:30 p.m. at the Palm Theater to benefit the San Luis Obispo High School choirs. They're going to be performing at Carnegie Hall in New York in a couple of weeks. Tickets are $10, and 100% of all ticket sales will go to the San Luis Obispo High School. And the following day, Sunday, March the 13th, this coming Sunday, The Chorus will also be shown in a benefit screening for Cuesta College's vocal groups who are planning a trip to Europe this summer. Tickets are also $10, and 100% of all ticket sales will go to Cuesta College. Mark your calendars. This weekend you can benefit the music programs at both San Luis Obispo High School and Cuesta College. March 12th for San Luis High at 1:30 p.m. and March 13th, 11 a.m., both at the Palm Theater, and The Chorus, a wonderful new film from France.
The soundtrack alone is worth the price of admission.
The soundtrack of The Chorus, I guess, is a worldwide hit.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
I can attest. I've seen it.
Another announcement for you to let you know that UCSB Arts and Lectures is presenting their Spring Cinema 2005, 10 evenings of film, and an incredible lineup of film, as usual, with the UCSB Arts and Lectures cinema series, including House of Flying Daggers, a great film called Head On, Los Angeles Plays Itself, which I saw parts of at the Toronto Film Festival last year. It was amazing. Lots of great films. If you'd like more information on the UCSB Arts and Lectures Spring Cinema 2005, call 805-893-3535. And last but not least, for fans of Take Two, we are very pleased to announce that going to the KCBX website, kcbx.org, you can listen to past programs of Take Two. Just log on to the site, hit Audio Archives, and go to Take Two, and we've got a good dozen programs on there that you can listen to at your leisure.
How cool.
And if you have any favorite programs that you may have heard that aren't on there, you can always write to us at movies@kcbx.org and give us a request. If there's a show that you might have heard you like to put on the audio archives, we can do that. And our big thanks to projectionist Hank, who is in charge of filling up those audio archives for us.
Hank was showing me a cool link to a very handsome picture of Steve Buscemi embedded in the Take Two links.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the kind of detail that we appreciate, Hank.
Well, our show today came together very interestingly. I was emailing Catherine saying, what do we talk about on Monday's show? And she brilliantly came up with the idea, let's talk about bad movies.
And we have to, right off the bat, we're not saying bad as in good, in that hip way that some people do. We mean bad as in stinkers.
We are saying that there are good bad movies, but we're going to be talking about
bad movies.
Bad movies. And what also made sort of the cosmic link here is when Catherine mentioned bad movies, just watching this week's edition of Ebert and Roper, it was pretty much across the board bad movies. They didn't like anything. They were talking about current films, Son of the Mask, wretched, Constantine, horrible, Because of Winn-Dixie. They didn't like that. And then they had just finished the current show raking Vin Diesel in The Pacifier and just thought that John Travolta in Be Cool was pretty mediocre. What's going on?
Yeah, it's and I'm thinking this might be pretty fun for some of our Take Two listeners to be able to call in and really sound off a little bit about some of the bad movies that are out right now.
And Catherine, I think this is sort of there's a guilty pleasure in here, because when you see a really bad movie, I mean, I'll look at you, Catherine, and say, if you had the resources that, well, for instance, Steven Spielberg had with Hook, I know, Catherine, that you would have come up with a much better film than that. And maybe that's the guilty pleasure about bad movies. In fact, one of the greatest quotes I remember from Stanley Kubrick is what got him into filmmaking is he saw too many bad films. He says, I can do a whole lot better than that. And by golly, he did. But, it's almost that reverse incentive and the idea that this is so bad that I can do better.
I also like I can't remember, I'm not going to be able to properly attribute this quote, but a reviewer was saying how people are drawn to bad reviews. I mean, a bad review of a movie is usually, let's say, twice as long as a review of a good movie, because there's so much more to go into. Like, the music was terrible. The layers upon layer of badness, of terrible upon terrible. And there is that guilty pleasure of sort of peeling back and saying it couldn't possibly get worse, but oh yes, it does. And many movies, they just start on a perilous journey down, and there is that sort of that enjoyment of somebody else's. It's almost like a Schadenfreude a little bit. Enjoying somebody else's pain.
Well, I think there's also some venting involved in the fact that, you just wasted 2 hours of your life with something, and I guess maybe the reviewer just has to get it off his or her chest, and the fact that, what did I just see, and why did I do this, and I would have been better off not seeing it.
And I also kind of, when you're talking to somebody about film and you hear the visceral loathing of something, And again, that's sort of the explanation of like, I thought it couldn't get worse, but then in comes the, whatever takes it down even further.
Well, this show, is usually devoted to talking about film as an art form, and we always are in reverential acclaim of some of the genres, directors, stars, and so on. And so we're twisting it, and we're just kind of perhaps we've got some clips of some gems, and we know that there's literally hundreds of really bad movies. You wonder how they even got made. We can go through the process, but a few gems that maybe considering our opening clip is from Ishtar.
I was going to say, we haven't even revealed where the first, and it was so painful to listen to, really.
Well, I was watching this today, and even when we were playing the clip as we opened the show, we were kind of giggling. The voices, by the way, Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman as those terrible lounge singers in Morocco, where the film takes place. And I was trying to warm up to this film today, Catherine, and they really needed some lessons from Bill Murray, who knows how to be a lounge singer who is really bad but hilarious. And here's Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman really trying to make the comedy work. And I guess the word here is trying, when they're trying to do something and failing. Oh boy. I mean, did
either of them ever work again? No. Did it ruin their careers?
Well,
actually, that's actually a point, though. It didn't ruin their careers. Although when we were talking about Ishtar in particular, we hit sort of on a philosophical note. I remember when Ishtar came out and it did so badly and the reviews were just scathing, that one of the things about Ishtar was that whatever year it was released, it had hit some sort of level of one of the most expensive comedies ever made, or what have you. That it was this monumental, ridiculously large budget film for it to be so awful. It had sort of cracked some ceiling. I think you were saying $40 million
at the time, and $40 million was a number that was used like in the Heaven's Gate days, where it just sunk MGM, and the fact that Michael Cimino was going way over budget. There's another one we could put on our list, and the fact that they were thinking that Heaven's Gate was bad. I mean, I don't really think it's that bad of a film, but that could have been part of what was going against Ishtar, and the fact that it was not very good, but it was this big, bloated, expensive mess.
That went nowhere.
So, Warren Beatty, Dustin Hoffman, if you want to be funny lounge singers, Dustin Hoffman worked together with Bill Murray in Tootsie, and, maybe you could have had some lessons or something. But, you got to strain to laugh at these guys, even though you see these great stars trying to be funny as these lounge singers. It's a bit of a leap. So, okay, we're just going to go kind of scattershot here, and then we'll open up the phone lines a little bit later on and hear about maybe some of your harrowing experiences in the movie theater or watching videos. But just a few of the little gems that we have for you. One film that was agonizing to see was the remake of Godzilla with Matthew Broderick. And what was very interesting about this film was the build-up. The previews were pretty interesting. Here were computer graphics that were pretty amazing. And usually the previews were very short, like a big Godzilla foot would smash through something, and that was the preview. Well, all the computer graphics in the world and all of the non-characters in the world made this one of the most horrible movies I think I've ever seen. And it made me, long for the guy in the rubber suit. I know Bob would have been saying, the rubber suit thing is much better than these computer graphics.
I was gonna say, wait a minute. We're talking about Godzilla. You can't say the computer graphics, the computer effects aren't good. We're talking about a movie that originally was a visibly not real monster.
Yes.
And that's better than this.
Yes.
Than all the technology that can come forth in the beginning of the 21st century.
Yes.
Because wasn't this Godzilla 2000? I mean, there was sort of that built in as well. The sort of the millennium and the dawn of this new age kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, the main complaint that I'll level against the remake of Godzilla is the fact that, if the computer graphics aren't working, you would hopefully have some characters. And even if they are cartoon characters, you can actually give them, 2 dimensions instead of no dimensions. But even good old Matthew Broderick couldn't pull this thing together.
Wait, you want characters and plot? Jim.
After watching the remake of Godzilla, I was thinking, give me a cheap, no-budget 1950s horror film, and the characters there have more substance to them than anybody in this remake of Godzilla. And dialogue. Here's a clip from the remake of Godzilla. It's always good to have a scientist around.
He's not some enemy trying to evade you. He's just an animal.
What are you suggesting?
Well, when I had to catch earthworms, I knew that the best way to get them was not to dig them out, but to draw them out. All we need to do is to find out what he needs, and he'll come to you.
Eureka! We need that scientist around to make sure that we can lure Godzilla out. I mean, I was listening to that dialogue today, Catherine, and I'm thinking of somebody at their computer typing out this dialogue, and it's just like, oh, boy. And, you know, the whole movie is like that. Oh.
Well, plus, and just from hearing that one clip, could you not find somebody more credible as a scientist than the sweet, unassuming voice of Matthew Broderick? I mean, all I can think about is Ferris Bueller, for God's sakes. You know?
Oh, bring on Ferris Bueller, please. You know.
But I'm thinking that also that earthworm logic, faulty. I know, not to take it, but if we're going to examine the layers of badness, I must say.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Faulty at the very, very least. Well, anyway, that's one of our little gems, the remake of Godzilla, Steer Clear, and hopefully you didn't waste 2.5 hours. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes long. Oh, boy. Well, we're going to move on because we've got a lot more pet peeves here. I'm going to take a couple of pot shots personally at considered to be one of the world's greatest directors, at least as far as bringing in money, and that's good old Steven Spielberg. And I know I'm going to disappoint some maybe younger listeners because even my daughters watched this movie and enjoyed it. And boy, I had an extremely bad time with Hook. Of all the Peter Pan movies, you know, we even have a more recent one, Finding Neverland. There's the wonderful Disney animated version. And then Steven Spielberg, you know, to me, the syrup was dripping off the camera on this one. And just, I never lost sight of it being a movie. It just seems like it was all filmed on a Hollywood set that was built. It just didn't have any. And Steven Spielberg, you know, I mean, he's done some great work, but boy, some of his stuff, I think, fits into the category of the show tonight.
I would agree. And even Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell could not save this. We were talking, and I remember it was sort of seemed like it almost was like, what another big star can we fit into the lineup here of Hook?
Yes.
It's a chance to work with Steven. How could we say, how can we say no? And trying to stuff it with stars as if that's going to save it.
Yeah, I think the most irritating part of this film, and probably all the films that we're talking about tonight, is when the filmmakers, the writer, the director are trying to do something and failing miserably. And I think one of the worst things you can try to do and fail miserably at is to, get that emotion out of you. And in this film, it takes a long time for Robin Williams to realize that he was once Peter Pan. And it is agonizing. There's this scene with this really schmaltzy music where a little kid is up and looking at his face and close-ups of these twinkly eyes and, well, it's Peter Pan, and oh, boy. So I apologize that I'm raking this film so badly, but for me it is, if you want the ultimate punishment, put the Clockwork Orange thing on my face and make me watch Hook and,
I was feeling like we should apologize a little bit because it's 2 with Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah. Well, let's get it over with.
Yeah.
Here's Dustin Hoffman as Hook in Hook.
Oh, I should call myself with my own Hooksby, not to kill Pan when I had the chance. What have I done? What have I done, Spee? Agreed to a preposterous plan, an absurd war. Now I'm bound by my indefatigable good form to wait.
I'll fix you a nice plate.
Wait for what? Whether it be 3 days or 3 decades, he will always be a fat old Pan. Oh, I hate being disappointed, Smee, and I hate living in this flawed body, and I hate living in Neverland, and I hate Peter Pan!
Hey, more great dialogue.
Yeah. And let's be honest, a British accent has destroyed many an American performance, but it is of note in this performance by Dustin Hoffman.
Catherine, I think it's interesting because here is Dustin Hoffman, who could be wonderfully over the top, but at least for me personally, I just think it's just not working at all. And I was just trying to think of examples where directors did over the top stuff and it worked. And here I go back to Stanley Kubrick and thinking of Dr. Strangelove, and I'm not sure how he did it, but these guys are all over the top. Even when you think of the character Dr. Strangelove, I mean, Peter Sellers going way over the top, but somehow, some way, this movie works. These over the top performances seem to work in the context of the movie of nuclear madness. And so I'm often amazed at how Kubrick was able to, maybe it's that keen director's eye to say, yeah, go over the top. Here's George C. Scott going, way over the top, but somehow it isn't, well, dare I say, embarrassing, like listening to Dustin Hoffman play Captain Hook.
Plus, we're talking about Peter Sellers, and whereas Dustin Hoffman, I mean, last winter we all endured Meet the Fockers. I mean, some actors, if they have an outstanding dramatic range, the draw to do comedy or lighthearted, or when it's just sort of switching genres for them, or what they have been sort of tried and true, I wonder if that plays into it as well. You used the example. Peter Sellers. I would trust him with over the top because of his range as a comedic actor.
Mm-hmm. But, interestingly, when you think about Dustin Hoffman, I think there's comedic elements that he pulled off amazingly well in The Graduate, but it isn't really a comedy role.
Right.
I mean, there's
that's a black comedy.
That's good. But just trying to think what else. There was another film where, he portrayed Lenny. I mean, of course, he's portraying a guy who was a stand-up comedian, but there was also
come on, that's a dark role. That's a dark film. That's not. I would say that's not. Even though he was playing a comedian, that's a very dark film.
I agree. What I'm trying to say is Dustin Hoffman can get laughs even if he's playing somebody else, or playing The Graduate, who was this kind of very quiet guy, but when he says to Mrs. Robinson, you're seducing me, Mrs. Robinson, and he kind of goes, aren't you? I mean, it's hilarious, and he's just being the very, very simple, quiet character that he's playing. So.
Well, I think after talking about Hook, especially because it is directed by Steven Spielberg, I wanted to share sort of a philosophical discussion here of the bad film. There's a difference between a bad film and a bomb. A bomb film is a bad film that doesn't make any money. Some of these movies that we're talking about are bad films that actually make money. Mm-hmm. And some of the movies that we were talking about before that are in current release that are, to use the word, wretched, they're going to be in the top 10 in the box office.
Yeah.
So thinking, trying to put on my mindset of the Hollywood executive, what's unfortunate is that there are a lot of bad movies that make money. So really, they are successful. I mean, they're considered in the movie making, parlance, that they're considered successful. So it's giving fire to say, well, here's a perfect opening for a sequel. Here's a perfect opening for a Constantine sequel because it was in the top 10 for 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
That is because there is that money making part of it. Whereas you can think about a movie like, I don't know, something's coming to mind like Glitter, the Mariah Carey vehicle, where that not only was a critical failure, it was a box office failure. So that's really classifies something as a bomb. That's a little bit different. Just throwing that out there, philosophical discussion.
No, that's good too, Catherine, because when you use the word vehicle, I think when perhaps a pop star, this is their vehicle to get into the movies. If you use the word vehicle, I think you're going to be veering towards bad.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's a good word, vehicle, for us tonight. My only defense of that and the fact that people do go see the movies, they don't read the reviews, is, to me, the best defense is the fact that people just like to go to the movies and they're going to see whatever is new in their movie theater that weekend. And I'm all for that, and the fact that people like to go out and see movies. But, beyond those draws for the big top 10 movies, I would like to think that the moviegoer will also seek out smaller films, will also look for the highly acclaimed films. Perhaps after the Academy Awards, they'll look at some of the nominees and hopefully see not a bad movie.
That's true. But also traditionally, this is a time of year when studios kind of, for lack of a better term, dump some of their lesser performers into the theaters to kind of clear out. We're starting to build towards the summer where that's where the tentpole films come out. Then we move into the fall where sort of the indie films come out, where they would have where they have a little space between the blockbusters and the holiday films.
Mm-hmm.
So this is considered sort of a dry time for quality films, but you do have to look for the post-Oscar kicks to the ones that are of quality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would hope that those would carry us through. Of course, this time these days, summer starts, almost beginning May 1st or so. So there isn't too much time, a couple months.
Who knew you had to employ such strategy in your movie watching?
Well,
it's important, though.
That is true. There are seasons to movies, that's for sure, and there's seasons for
bad movies. I saw Be Cool. I know what I'm talking about.
So, I mean, is what we're talking about. Now, you saw Get Shorty.
Yes. Charming, clever. None of those things were in. Speaking of vehicles, Be Cool was almost an entire vehicle to promote some, forgive me, dime a dozen singer who's apparently is a real singer trying to make it, and it lacked any sort of cleverness. One review that I read said that Uma Thurman and John Travolta phoned in their performances, which is wholly accurate. There was nothing enjoyable except for the funk soundtrack that was sparse, in between. Everything else was painful and stupid to watch.
Oh boy! And when we're talking about that top 10, what the fate of a lot of the top 10 movies, rather than staying the course, people find out about word of mouth and it grows. Usually the top 5, then they'll go down to number 9 and then they disappear from sight, and then a few months later they're on video. So, oh boy. Well, let's move on to another bad movie, and this was a famous one, mainly because, as Catherine mentioned, this film hit a budget that was unseen, unheard of prior to this one, and we're talking about Kevin Costner in Waterworld.
See, the first clue should have been Kevin Costner. Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry.
Well, there's a new film with Kevin Costner coming out that they mentioned this last week with Diane Lane, The Upside of Anger. Is that what it's
Joan
called?
Allen, actually.
Joan Allen, yes. And they say it's pretty good. And, Kevin Costner has shown that he can act, but I just think he's sort of picked the wrong projects or something.
Now, did he direct Waterworld?
I don't think he directed it, but I think he was financially involved, and I think the budget did hit something like about $170 million before it was even released. And folks, if making of the movie costs $170 million, you have to realize you're probably going to spend another $100 million to make prints, to advertise, and you have to make over $300 million to even break even. Maybe with the video release you can do that, but I mean, when you're getting up there, it's like you have to have something really good. My major beef with Waterworld is the fact that these guys said, let's do Road Warrior, let's tweak it, let's do it on water. Oh.
It sounds just like a line out of The Player.
Yeah.
I've got a concept. It's the Road Warrior, but on water. We'll get Dennis Hopper. Kevin Costner's coming in. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, Griffin Mill would go for it. Maybe at $10 million, not at $170 million.
I remember when Waterworld came out that I saw somewhere where they listed some of the countries that have GDPs less than what it costs to make. Something as atrocious as Waterworld.
Yes.
There.
It is kind of tough, too, with some of these films where the advance word comes out that it's just not working. Before it even hits the theaters, it's already been considered a bomb or whatever. But, boy, this one had a rough time. And for me, the biggest beef on Waterworld is when you see that they're just trying to duplicate something that was done and done better, why bother? It's pretty awful. We're going to play a quick clip from Waterworld, and this is a scene with Dennis Hopper, who is the major bad guy in this. And folks, if you think of Terminator 2, which I thought was a pretty enjoyable movie, and when Arnold Schwarzenegger puts on the shades and gets on the motorcycle and you hear George Thorogood and Bad to the Bone, somehow it works. I mean, you're seeing this science fiction film, and yet you're hearing this grungy rock and roll, and it was just like, well, this is kind of cool and it kind of works. Well, they try it in Waterworld. Well, I'll let you judge on whether it works or not. Here we go.
I'm sorry. No, it's just that there's a problem in the pit. Maybe you should come.
Let's drive.
bother with the scene. Dry! Hey, it's drying better.
Now, did that work? We're in the future. It's just nothing but water, and Dennis Hopper gets into his nuclear-powered car, and we hear the Peter Gunn theme. Does that work for you?
I'm going to say no.
It didn't work for me.
It works for me in a humorous way right now. I can picture Dennis Hopper with the eye patch on.
Well, this is shortly after he had that fake eye implanted, and it popped out, and that was more humorous attempt, let's just say. You know, there is straight-ahead action in Waterworld. There are some amazing action sequences. Some of the cinematography is great. I mean, I don't want to completely trash this film, but again, when it is seemingly a carbon copy of something else that was done better, it's just, you know, it's bad from the beginning. So we will, at least I will concur with the critics that Waterworld was pretty bad. You're listening to the movie program on Public Radio, KCBX San Luis Obispo, KSBX Santa Barbara. I'm here with Catherine McDonald. My name is Jim Dee. We're going to go over to the concession stand, back with more bad movies in a moment.
I want to go to the movie show, me and my baby. Come on, let's go. On to the movie show. Let's go. I buy the popcorn as soon as we hit the door. My two brothers Bell and Puns sitting in the front row. They bought the candy.
Funds for this program have been provided in part by Morin Brothers Automotive, starring Frida, the dog of many alter egos who is always glad to sniff your tires. Morin Brothers Automotive on Broad near Tank Farm Road.
Butterfly McQueen, she's gone with the wind. I love the film of Anthony Quinn.
We're back on Take Two, the movie program. You know, I'd like to personally thank Morin Brothers Automotive for being a great sponsor of Take Two, and big thank you. Catherine McDonald and I are talking about bad movies. We're not talking about good bad movies. We're talking about bad movies. We've been just citing a few little gems here and there, but you know, we'll hit just one more that's a little bit more current, and then we'll open up the phone lines because I'm sure you have some bad movie experiences, something that didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, something that you went to see and you said, you know what, give me a camera, I can do better than that. It's the toss-up. I mean, between the gems, the movies that are for the ages, and then there's the movies that are for the weekend, I guess. Well, Catherine, let's talk about this next film because I only saw parts of it today.
Well, you know, I do feel a little bit of shame in having to admit on our good airwaves that I have seen this film. But, you know, I did feel heartened a little bit. Chris Rock sort of tore this film up in his monologue at the Oscars.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw Soul Plane, okay? I can say it. I saw Soul Plane. I'm not proud. It was very bad. And I almost formed a rule about a movie with Snoop Dogg in it, but I didn't want to go so far.
It's a vehicle.
He was not the main character, but yeah, maybe there's some mathematical rule about Tom Arnold being the ubiquitous white guy and then Snoop Dogg being in. I don't know, but it was awful. It wasn't even it's so bad it's good. It was so bad there was no fun to be found.
Now, Catherine, as you say that, you are the one who recommended to me a great film called Undercover Brother.
Which is very, very funny, a spoof of the blaxploitation film, and Eddie Griffith does a fantastic job in that role.
I got the biggest kick out of that film, and I want to thank you right here and now for letting me know about that. But see, there's a good film. There's a film where there's a satire, there's a spoof, but it was hilarious. It was funny. It didn't take itself too seriously. I mean, it was really good. Whereas what I watched on Soul Plane today, it just didn't work. I mean, I guess we're going for like the black Airplane with the nonstop jokes. And to me, what little I saw, Catherine, was the fact that there was like one joke, and the fact that you get on this plane, and of course, the scene we're going to play for you is going into the restroom in the airplane. Of course, it's like this gigantic restroom, and there's a black guy in there who is the attendant to help you with your needs and stuff. And it was just sort of a single joke that just kept going and going and going.
And I would even say this even teetered into, because it played on a lot of racial stereotypes that were not like self-effacing. It was to the point where I kept thinking this is potentially offensive. I mean, it was geared towards a black audience, but it was so bad that they couldn't even make it funny. There wasn't even sort of we're laughing at ourselves kind of feeling at all. It was just so wrong. And yeah, bathroom humor, I'm over it. I'm done with it. I've had enough. Unfortunately, this clip is is going to be bathroom humor, but that's old. That's very old. And yeah, nothing about this film worked.
We are going to open up the phone lines. We're going to play a clip from Soul Plane just to put it in your head not to see this movie. And the number here is 549-8855, 1-800-549-8855. Hey, tell us about your most excruciating experience at the movies. And even if it's a film that, the rest of the planet thinks it's great and it just didn't work for you, that's what we're talking about. Because as Duke Ellington said about music, if it sounds good, it is good. Conversely, if you go see a movie and it's bad, it's bad. Here we go with Tom Arnold, who is going into the restroom in an airplane from Soul Plane.
Oh, hey, good evening. I didn't know anybody was in here. I'll come back later.
Why? I'm still gonna be here. I tell you what, you take care of your business, I take care of mine.
I just don't feel comfortable. I'll just hold it.
No, you don't want to do that. That stuff back up on you, top of your head just fly clean up. You don't want to do that. Why don't you just sit down and make yourself at home? Oh, I'm sorry. We don't get that many of y'all on the plane. For those with no junk in their trunk. That is a nice vest. I ain't seen one of them since Lionel and the Jeffersons. Whatever happened to Lionel? I thought he was...
Would you mind?
Oh, I'm sorry. Little fella kind of shy.
Yeah.
That's a clip from Soul Plane. And Catherine, I got to tell you, from there, that scene does descend into some really raunchy bathroom humor. And I thought, okay, well, this is sort of interesting where you've got this thing in this plane, but then it immediately, spirals downward and just wasn't that funny.
Haha, I'm Tom Arnold. Oh, I'm Tom Arnold. I'm the square white guy in this role.
Oh boy. Okay, the number is 549-8855, 1-800-549-8855. Give us your name and where you are calling from. Good evening. You're on take 2.
Hi.
Hi.
Chris from Santa Barbara.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, I just have my question. I enjoy hearing your show periodically. My question is, just because a show or a movie is bad, does that mean the principal actors can they make money in these forlorn episodes in their life, or do they typically go, okay, I'll just move on to the top of the next 10, or how do they, financially, how do they favor these roles? I mean, do they make money in them, or they just write off, they move on?
I think that because, let's say back to Ishtar with Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman. I mean, they got paid. They got paid to be in those roles. And, whereas I think that everybody has to kind of take the guff of being in something that's a bomb. I mean, one of the things about they've gone on to do fine productions, beyond that. And I think that you may be now with the 20-year gap between that colossal bomb and now that, they're still getting paid for being in films, and they still have, high regard as actors. So, yeah, I mean, I think whereas I think some people who, if it maybe perhaps, if it wasn't somebody so established as Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman, it would have ruined their career. But, I mean, those are two powerhouses of actings. I mean, what could really stop them?
Right. Well, I appreciate it. I just was curious, especially when I hear about Waterworld. I kind of wonder.
Yeah, you think yeah, and yeah, Kevin Costner. I mean, he might have taken a couple on the chin there for such a bad. I think see, because he was not only in front of the camera, that he was involved somehow, behind the scenes. I think that asks for a few more kicks to the belly for such a bad show. But like Jim says, he will soon once again be on a screen near you.
Yes, the Phoenix from the Ashes.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Good evening. You're on Take Two.
Hi, this is Zeb from Santa Barbara.
Hi there.
Zeb.
How about Rat Boy? Remember that one?
Rat Boy.
It was directed by, I think, Sandra Locke was her name, Clint Eastwood's ex-girlfriend.
Yes, I remember the title. I never saw it. And
I unfortunately did. I had recently been dumped by my girlfriend. I needed some escapism. I'd seen a positive review. I went to see it. I was the only person in the theater.
Oh.
Wait, for a film titled
for good
Rat
reason.
Boy?
That was really a dog.
Oh.
Rat Boy.
Rat Boy, yeah. It was kind of it was trying to be Kafka-esque. There was sort of this guy who had a rat face, but
oh yeah.
Oy vey. Oy vey. And more recently, how about Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow?
Boy, that film had such a build-up. Of course, Jude Law being it isn't Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow. And the art direction was fabulous, but what happened to Gwyneth Paltrow? Did she forget how to act?
Well, they were apparently acting the whole time, in front of a blue screen, so maybe it might be a little bit hard. But there again, if there was no story or anything, and it's just these amazing computer graphics, some people mentioned it to me, it was just really not a great film, just because there wasn't a great story. And even though you have these great visuals, if you don't have a story, well...
All true, but she dragged it down even further than it had to be. You guys were talking about Waterworld. I read a recent interview with Kevin Costner where he said that movie actually did make money.
I'm sure after, the good thing about these movies, even if they have these exorbitant budgets, when you factor in the video sales and the worldwide screening of these films, they've got kind of a cushion there.
Yeah, I think it was the international market that put that one into the black. But then again, Plan 9 from Outer Space probably made money, too.
I was going to say, just because it made money, that does not make it good.
No,
Sorry.
It doesn't, but it means Kevin can make another movie. And he has done some good movies. That one he did recently with Robert Duvall, The Western, was quite good.
Oh, Open Range.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks,
anyway,
Dad.
love the show.
Oh, thanks for the call. Good evening. You're on Take Two.
This is David in Oceano.
Hi, David.
Dave.
Hey, there's a movie that everyone raved about at the time, and I just watched it. I just was kind of going, this is so bad, I can't believe it, and I wanted to like it. And so I have a lot of respect for both of you, so I want to see if I was the only crazy one in the world. I have nothing against Tom Hanks. I like him, but Castaway?
Well,
I found that so ridiculous, especially when he got back off the island and he's still talking to that volleyball.
Oh, now see, I didn't see Castaway, but I'm not saying that Forrest Gump is a bad film, but everyone was all going crazy for that movie, and I thought, what's the deal here?
My theory on Castaway is that it should have been an independent film. It was an independent film in a blockbuster skin, and Robert Zemeckis and Tom Hanks, Helen Hunt, forgive me, if this had been sort of like an independent film, I could have bought it all, but I just couldn't get away from the fact that this was it was calculated to be a blockbuster, and anything that was all the parts that were emotional and touching and endearing, I just I couldn't believe it.
I was
in its skin.
laughing out loud in the theater. No one else was. I could not help it, and I couldn't help thinking that this is a movie that in 10 years people will say, oh yeah, let's watch this, kids. This is one of my favorite movies, when I was younger, and they put it on and they look at it and go, I can't believe I like this. And you talk about even extra faults, even some of the things on it where he's starting a fire by rubbing the wood together the way he was. It's actually impossible to start fire that way, and a friend of mine was explaining why and all that, so.
That makes good cinema, I guess. Good bad cinema.
Okay, well, I don't know. So I wish you'd seen that, Jim. I would really like to get your opinion and see if some corroboration.
See, now he's not going to see it because you said that.
I'll take your recommendation and not see it.
Love your show.
Oh, thanks for the call.
All right, bye.
Good evening. You're on Take Two.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, my name's Chris from Santa Barbara, and I really enjoy your show.
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, you bet. I have an opinion that's probably not with the consensus, and I thought $1 Million Baby was a terrible movie.
You know what? I got an email today from a good friend who went to see $1 Million Baby, and he thought it was one of the worst movies he had ever seen. So you're not alone. And last week when Bob and I were talking, our post-Oscar show, it was really divided. Some people thought it was really deserving of the Oscar, and others were in your opinion, and they didn't like it at all.
I completely enjoyed the performances; they were amazing. But it was such a comic book portrayal of boxing and her winning every fight the first round. It was like a Rocky movie. I thought the German boxer was sort of like a Mr. T character or a Drago or something. It was. I was surprised at how that got so well received.
You're not alone. You're not alone in that opinion. I think it was really divided on this one. And case in point, our listeners. And again, this, if you would have read this email I got today, this guy said he was still suffering from seeing this movie. That he thought it was cliche-ridden, and he just didn't like it at all.
Well, there's a lot of people who believe that Clint Eastwood, has now moved into the realm of melodrama. And you think about Mystic River, and it really has the melodrama. And melodrama is hard to make work. I mean, that's why we say, oh, it was melodramatic. And we don't mean it's good. So,
I agree.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
As far as Forrest Gump, I was really bummed that year because that was the year that Pulp Fiction was up for everything, and I really wanted Pulp Fiction to win that year. But Forrest Gump swept.
Yeah, my problem with Forrest Gump is I think I saw it after it made $300 million, and so I was supposed to be this incredible film, and I just thought that was rather cliche-ridden and really amazing cinematic stuff where, there's Forrest Gump with Nixon and so on, but the film didn't work for me, boy, and, here was this huge hit, and so.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for the call. Good evening, you're on Take Two.
Hi, Mark from Goleta.
Hi, Mark.
Howdy, I've got a bad cold, so bad movie night works perfect for me. Something that I think was critically acclaimed, but I just thought was horrible, was Legends of the Fall.
Now, I didn't see Legend of the Fall, but with great cast, Anthony Hopkins and Brad Pitt, but...
yeah, I think they should have called it And Everybody Dies. Toward the end of the movie, the one couple that's left that you care about, you really want them to do well, sure enough, they get gunned down. I mean, everybody dies. It was just, you get emotionally involved in these characters, and then they all get blown away in one fashion or another.
Oh, that's just emotionally wrought. Come on, that's deep.
It's depressing. You walk away. I was speechless for a while. I was like, what just happened? What did I watch?
Oh, I've had too many experiences like that, walking out of a movie. Just go, ooh. So, yeah, I think Brad Pitt was really happening. And I remember he had the very long hair in that film, and everyone was oohing and eyeing Brad Pitt. But
I thought he mumbled a lot.
Oh, boy. But everybody dies.
And then he died, yeah. He mumbled and then he died. But the worst movie I've ever seen in my life was a spoof on the Godfather type genre, and that was Mafia.
I didn't see Mafia.
Don't. It's below junior high school humor.
Wow.
Oh, that's really bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, spoof, another one hard to make work. It can go wrong easy.
Mafia and Everybody Dies.
And Everybody Dies.
See, at least Brad Pitt went on to Meet Joe Black.
He did.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Another stinker. Anyway.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the call.
Bye.
Good evening. You're on Take Two.
Good evening.
Hello.
Rod, halfway between Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo.
Hey, Rod. Are you driving?
Are you on the road, yeah.
On the road.
I'm driving. Oh, no, I got... Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, you guys picking on Ishtar is going to cause a problem for me. That's a good movie.
Well, it's
so bad, it's good.
Well, we were thinking that was a fine line because as we were listening to the opening and we were cracking up here, and maybe compared to some of these other dogs, Ishtar in retrospect is not that bad.
We were saying Ishtar's the best of these bad movies that we have here.
Yeah, listen, you backpedaling, you guys. We went and saw it, wife and I went and saw it as a preview because we figured it'd be good, and I'll tell you, the audience went absolutely nuts. They stood up at the end, applauded, and so forth. And my wife went and saw it later with my son just to show him, because we enjoyed it. And she said the audience booed. Now, that was after the critics came out on it.
Oh.
So, I don't know if that's fair to analyze it that way or not, but I'm sure that's an element. Only in relation to other movies, the Palm Theater in San Luis Obispo, I've only seen one bad movie there. I always enjoy going there because they make good selections. and that was the piano. And when what's her name got her foot tied up in the piano and it fell out of the boat, and she drug her down in the water, I jumped up and yelled, "Let her die! Please let her die!"
You know, I got to tell you, the piano was highly acclaimed, and I had a very hard time with that film. And, I think Jane Campion, who directed it, is a really interesting director. But, boy, if you want to see one of the worst movies, Beyond the Piano, her last film had Meg Ryan in it, and it was called In the Cut. Steer clear. I
decided I didn't want to go see that.
Yeah. Oh, it's awful. It doesn't make any sense. It's just really one of the most atrocious films. I saw that at the Toronto Film Festival, and usually film festival attendees are very open to films. That movie ended, and the audience was hissing. It was like. So, and the piano, I didn't like the Holly Hunter character that much. Harvey Keitel, even though he's naked, the movie didn't work for me. So we're in agreement.
You liked him being naked? Is that?
No, but
I'm sorry, I missed something there.
Oh, well, that's okay. But
what about the hatred? This sort of abusive relationship that we're supposed to find so romantic.
I had somebody told me that it's a love story, and I'm thinking, God, that was rape.
Yes. Total agreement. I didn't like that film.
Two rules.
Yes.
Number one, there's a direct relationship between a bad movie and how long into the movie it takes before somebody gets kicked in the crotch. Anything earlier than 30 minutes, you might as well go home. That's number one.
Headbutting also works, too.
Yeah. Number two is just because you paid to go in the movie, that's number one, stupid. Number two, stupid, is actually staying there and wasting your time. If you don't like it, get up and leave, because there's two levels of stupid. The other thing is we did go see the Get Shorty follow-up, Be Cool, and I felt the same way about it. It just was all over the board. But people in the theater were eating it up. They were loving it. So what are you going to do when you have that kind of audience?
Walk out, as you said.
No, we're gonna make a third one. The sequel was so successful. We're gonna make a third installment.
Be cooler.
I guess there's no relationship between money and movies.
No, there isn't.
You're a wise sage here. You're a wise sage.
Thanks for the call. Drive carefully.
You're welcome.
Good evening. You're on take 2.
Hello, is this me?
That's you.
Yeah, this is David up in Cambria.
Hey, David.
And the only movie I ever walked out on, in a theater, paid money to go in, was, I think it was the second Cheech and Chong movie called Nice Dreams.
Oh.
It was, and I was in the proper frame of mind to go see it. I mean, I knew it was loady humor, so my friend and I were appropriately, intoxicated in a proper manner. But it was like the same joke over and over again. When they got to it, like the third time they did the same, marijuana joke. I was like, let's leave, and that was it. We walked out, and this was, like large money at the time when I was seeing it. It was brand new. I don't know, sometime in the late '60s or early, I guess the '70s.
Yeah, I think of Cheech and Chong much better as maybe stand-up comics, and they can do that shtick in the movies that they made. They made quite a few movies. Up in Smoke, Nice Dreams. I'm in agreement. Maybe you weren't properly enough.
Well, it just like they ran out of gas. It was like, this is the same one we saw, last year. Only, the scenery is different, but it's not. But it's anyway, it's worse. But the worst, the real bomb. I'm not even sure if this was a bomb. It might have actually done okay. But the worst remake of a classic horror movie.
Let me guess. Psycho.
No, I shouldn't say horror movie.
Oh.
Okay, I'll be more specific. What the worst remake of a classic monster movie?
Well, we already mentioned Godzilla.
Okay, nothing to do with lizards.
Okay, tell us.
The remake that happened to be, I believe, the debut of Jessica Lange.
Oh, King Kong.
Yes.
Yeah.
With Jeff Bridges. God, that was so dumb. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it was awful.
At the very end, when they're having King Kong climb, the instead of the Empire State Building, they make it the
World Trade Center.
The World Trade Center, yes. And to make sure that you're not too dumb to miss the clue, they flash onto the screen the two great big palm trees or two big mountain, whatever it was, on the island where the big ape was from. They flash that on there for a second, so you go, oh yeah, he's going to climb that because it reminds him of the two trees on the island or whatever. Anyway, it was that was. I just can't believe that the script could be that bad.
Well, you know that Peter Jackson, the director of The Lord of the Rings, is remaking King Kong.
Yes, and I have more faith in his. I mean, I'm hoping he will. I'm sure he probably will look at both the original with the Fay Ray, in the hand of the big monkey, and the badly done, Jeff Bridges, Jessica Lange, whoever else was in that movie.
Yeah, well, Dino De Laurentiis was the producer, and he was the infamous, he was. The spoof on Saturday Night Live was, blasting Jaws. He goes, the shark dies, nobody cries. King Kong dies, everybody cries. You know that one?
yeah, that's true, yeah.
Well, thanks for the call.
Sure, let me go.
Good evening, you're on take 2. We have very little time left.
Hi.
Hi.
I think that's me.
It's you.
It's Yolanda from Los Osos.
Hi, Yolanda.
And I just wanted to give a couple movie names. My husband and I don't get to the movies all that often, so we have this long list of movies that we'd like to see sometime. And a couple weekends ago, we went to see, or we checked out as videos, Being There and 9 to 5. And after we'd watched both of them, one day after another, we looked at each other and said, boy, was that a waste of time.
Really? You didn't like Being There? Oh, boy. I thought Being There was pretty interesting, but...
I would guess that 9 to 5 feels like more like a time capsule. It feels like it's dated now, and it's not the same sort of, humor that it was when it was first in the theaters.
I suppose. It was just so outlandish and seemed pretty sexist to me in the other direction.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The guys were clods. And it just, was abnormal. And Being There was a little bit scary.
Oh, yeah.
And it was also a little bit racist. And that bothered me. Anyway, I wouldn't recommend either of them.
Well, thanks for your non-recommendations, although I do like Being There quite a bit. So.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Yolanda.
Thanks, Yolanda.
Bye.
Bye. Well, folks, we have a lot of callers waiting, but, our time is up. And talking about bad movies and having fun with bad movies, it was great, Catherine.
I know. See, it is fun talking bad.
Well, I want to thank all of our callers, and be discerning in your musical or in your movie selections if you can. And if we've given you any guidance tonight, just know that there are some times where you're going to spend a couple hours where you're going to regret it afterwards. But that's the name of the game.
Or at least see it with somebody that you can shred it for, at least the same amount of time that you wasted in the theater. You can spend dissecting.
Yeah.
And trashing.
Yeah, that's further, your... What am I trying to get here? The movies you like and don't like, after you see a bad movie, go out with someone and you can discuss.
Make it fun. We had fun here. You can make it fun at home.
Thanks to the listeners. Thanks to Hank. Thank you, Catherine McDonald.
Thank you, Jim.
See you next week.